Thank you very much. I just want to say thank you very much for the invitation to come to your conference and speak. The audience and what this conference was about, mainly people, was very exciting. But what was also exciting was the fact that it was in Krakow, which is one of my favorite cities as well. So it's great. It's great being here. I've been here so many times. I've got lots of friends. So to come here has been fabulous. So I am here. I'm between you and getting home. So I'm going to try and make this a little bit entertaining if I can. It's a tough subject. I am trying to put a little bit of science into the whole theory of change. Now, we've had a number of lean changes for many years, getting on for 20-odd years now. And everybody has been talking about, it's about changing the mindset, changing the culture, and all these things. But when I tried to look for some academic research on this, it was very bitty. So a number of years ago, in fact in 1999, when I was at Fujitsu, somebody from the London School of Economics phoned me up and said, we are doing this psychological research study on how organizations tick. Can we come along? And I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity. Because we were going through a lean change then, something that later became called sense and respond. And what really surprised me was about the research is that the academics and the work psychology people have been measuring cultures and work climates for a very long time. And for the very first time, I got a glance of what a work climate for lean looks like. And that set me on a 10-year journey with a number of universities to try and understand what it is when we talk about change, and particularly lean change, and particularly adaptive change, where we're engaging the workforce. What are the elements that really make a difference? And I'm here to show you some of that today, only briefly, but to show there's a lot of foundation scientifically for some of the things I'm saying, but also some of the things people have been saying up here today and yesterday. So it's of no surprise that some of these things we know, but we don't really have evidence that we can prove it. And I want to support that with the evidence now. Okay, so there are 3 principles to lean or an agile organization. And there they are. It's people, people, people. Yes, it's people, people, people. It's people that make the difference. It's people that create value. And lean and agile are for the knowledge economy. And when you deploy the principles of lean with the respect for people, giving people freedom to think and reflect and to experiment, wonderful stuff happens. Now, we all know that, but we've now got science evidence that tells us why. So I'm going to put some of the science in context with a case study. The case study comes with a slight warning in that it's one case study made up of 3 larger case studies. So I've taken the best of those to show you an illustrative form. Okay, so when you look at the case study, it isn't one, it's actually 3 that will be brought together to illustrate the point. But each one was very, very successful. But for learning purpose, I'd put the 3 together. If you want to follow me, I'm Lean Voices on Twitter. I've got a blog on leanvoices.com. A lot of what I talk about today will be on the leanvoices.com. Okay, so let's get into this. First of all, I want to talk about changing perspectives. I will illustrate that in a moment. The thing I want to focus on is this thing called work climate. I'm not talking culture, and I'll explain why later. Work climate is something that we can all feel and we can recognize, and I'll bring that out. Respect for people and a blame-free environment. This is often misunderstood, so I want to give you some of my view on what a blame-free environment means, what a respect for people environment means. And it's not what you think. Well, some of you think anyway. We need to move from what we call mass production thinking to lean thinking. Mass production is quite clearly coming into very siloed. We are just hitting the numbers. We are maximizing the output from people, and we are focusing on the people and maximizing the output from the people, as opposed to lean thinking, which is looking at how the whole thing works together to maximize the value to customers. And we are free to experiment different ways of doing that. In the mass production environment, you're not free to experiment. It's disciplined compliance in mass production compared to disciplined experimentation in lean. And that's a completely different way of looking at the business and managing people. And I'll bring that out. I will demonstrate how we measure the work climate. These are busy slides. There's a busy slide warning on them, quite simply because something as complex as the way an organization thinks is very difficult to get down onto a couple of slides. But I've tried my best. And then into the case study itself. And there's lots of references and resources and recommended reading at the back. I will say, when I'm talking about references and sources, I've been absolutely incredibly lucky throughout my career to meet a number of people that have helped me on my journey, or mentored me, and that's been terrific. So if you want to find out where that background is, please take a look on Lean Voices. You'll have it fully documented there. Okay, so I just want you to watch this video carefully. This video comes from the 1970s. And this is really about, this was put out by the Guardian newspaper. And it's available on YouTube, so you can use it in your transformation workshops. It illustrates the point that I'm talking about. So I will talk over this as we go through. So this guy's seen a car. He doesn't like the look of them, so he's running away. So is it a gangland thing? Who knows? From another perspective, he's running down the street. He's going to hit that guy, steal his bag. But let's take another look. The bigger picture. We see something completely different. And that is the essence of changing the way that organizations perceive the outside world and to perceive what goes on in the inside world. In mass production, we each have our own single points of view, and we do our busy, bang, bang stuff, and we try to get more bangs for the buck in the hope that it will turn out okay. But we're all doing that independently. What Lean does, it allows everybody to get that bigger picture. In fact, without the bigger picture, we cannot work. And some of the survey stuff that I'll be showing you will be telling us how organizations see that bigger picture or don't. But it's really important that we move to seeing the bigger picture. So what are we trying to do is we are trying to liberate the willing contribution of our staff, because it's only the willing contribution that really creates breakthrough code, knowledge, and insight. You can't command and control somebody to be brilliant. Okay? Somebody was saying this week that I make great code in the shower. Yep, I come up with my best ideas when I'm relaxed, sometimes in the shower. You can't command and control those sorts of breakthroughs in thought. They come when they come. Musicians have a word for that. It's called the muse, or in the groove. It's exactly that. So in order to have that freedom, okay, that your performance is a matter of choice, being able to do different things at the right time, which is a matter of freedom with the power to do, in this case, what matters to our customers. But there are things that get in the way. There's the red tape from the job role, the processes, the procedures, or the methods that we're told to follow. The performance measures, the style of leadership, all of these things get in the way. In a mass production environment, if you step out of line, there's a lot of blame. So we're going through a transformation. We have to cut these links. We have to break them down. And we have to do that in a systemic way, or systematically. We can't just go out changing things. because we don't know the cause and effect on a lot of things. I would say the biggest thing that would change your organization very, very quickly, without thinking about all these change processes, is go and change your measurement system to end-to-end, and it's about outcomes for your customer. Don't measure the quantities of things, it's how things perform together, end-to-end, and you go everybody to that goal. You will have a massive change in perspective. And that's one of the places that I start. In fact, I don't start a transformation until we've measured that. What is the performance end-to-end for what matters to our customers? It's the first principle of Lean. But very few people actually do that. They do the other principles, they'll value stream map, they'll process map, look at all the steps that don't create value, chop those out, and they make things go faster, not realizing that what they were making before didn't satisfy the customer. Now they're making it faster. And what they've done is used Lean or Agile and created cheaper, neater, faster waste. And it's cheaper. And then you get this delusion, a self-deception, a seduction, that it works. Worse still, we may even automate it. We automate work that need not be done. Worse still, we send it offshore to low-cost labor economies so that they can process it. Cheaper, neater, faster waste. And the amount of waste that is in organizations is absolutely tremendous. But I'm not going to focus on waste today. I'm going to focus on the waste in human potential, not the waste in resources. So how do we break this down? Well, it's people, people, people. And what I mean here is your client, or your direct customer, or your client's customer. That's one group of people. Engaging them and deeply understanding them and what they're trying to achieve. What's their purpose in business? Okay? We deep understanding. This is not the same as a voice of the customer, which we get out of Six Sigma. In Lean, the voice of the customer means he's in there with you day in, day out on your shop floor, working through the transformation. We don't need to write it down. He's there with us. We go into his environment. The one thing about having the customer in your environment as you're going through the transformation is this: it stops all the politics. It really does. Just try it. But you've got to be brave enough to go open book and saying, look, we don't do everything perfect. There's lots of things that we need to do, and get the right customer involved in doing that. So we need to engage, deeply understand, and that's our frontline operations. And I mean even salespeople, account teams, engineers, anybody that touches and understands the customer. We need to grab that information and we share it. We learn from this. We share it end to end. We take this end-to-end perspective. And the leadership then have to listen and adapt, not command and control. What is this data telling us? What should we be doing? What are the opportunities that are there? And then we should be directing our people to actually go after new sorts of value, to experiment new products and services. At the same time, we're delivering the other stuff. Now, most organizations can't do that because there's too much waste in the system. But people say to me, we can't do this, Stephen, because we don't have the resources. And I point out, you do have the resources. You're just doing the wrong work. So spotting what the wrong work is really part of the improvement cycle. So improving, then we adapt, innovate, and improve. This is using every point of contact with our business to systematically capture what's going on in the customer's world, making sense, measuring how we deliver to what matters to the customer, and using that information to really drive innovation. Innovation comes from having low levels of waste. Innovation comes from having a workforce that is capable of solving problems at scale. We heard earlier on in the week about A3. I love A3, but it isn't practiced as A3. It's a tool, and we'll talk about tools in a minute. So, whatever your change program is, somebody comes along and says, we're going to do Lean, Agile, and I'm not going to say the other word. All of those things. And somebody says, okay, we baseline our current performance, and we think we're going to get to this transformation objective up here. This is what we've heard. This is what we can do. So then we put in the new tools and methods for improvement. We put them through a sheep dip. You know what a sheep dip is? We put the sheep in, and there's just a crowd, and out they come, and they're supposed to be experts the other side. And then we take a look at, well, the new performance. And everybody's a bit mystified. Well, we haven't had a step change. It's a little bit. So what has gone wrong? We followed all the books. We read all the books. We are diligently using the tools and the methods. What is going wrong? And what I suggest is the gap, the performance gap, is the way that we manage our people. Let me explain. Their perspective is wrong. It's within the silo. Very often they use the tools and techniques to improve the silo. And everybody knows you sub-optimize the whole. But if you've got everybody sub-optimizing the whole, you've got sub-optimization times 10, times 20, however many functions you've got. It further fragments the business, not joins it up. It certainly doesn't lead to flow, and it creates more waste. So the perspective from working in the silo to horizontal, as Jim Womack of the Lean Enterprise Institute famously said, we need to move from vertical management to horizontal management. And that changes everything. Changes our measurement systems, our perception of the customer, our knowledge of the business, and how we collaborate. Everything changes. So if everything changes, we may have to change the work design. We definitely have to change the measurement system and the behaviors that will come with it. Now, I'm a great believer in that you get the behavior you design for, or in some cases you fail to design for. Behavior is not a choice for most people. People are forced to behave in a particular way because of the climate, the measurement systems, and the drives to certain targets. So behavior is an outcome of your design, and if it's not a good design, you'll have bad behavior. Okay, all of that above that yellow line, I call the lean work climate. If you don't get that right, you will not bridge that gap. And all those are related to how people work together, how managers manage, what they pay attention to. And I'll start illustrating that in a moment. But to do that, we need to focus on 4 things: engaging and understanding, learning and sharing, leading and decision-making, improving and changing. That's the learning cycle. Let's talk quickly before we get into the main body of this presentation about this respect for people. It's from first to last. Lean is not about cutting people. It's about growing people. And if you've grown those people that they can take out lots of waste, it seems like a very wasteful thing to get rid of these smart people. You're investing in your people. Lean is an investment in your workforce. I won't read through all of these. I think my favorite here is about as a manager or a coach, which a lot of lean and agile experts call themselves as a coach, is helping them to see. And there's a saying here, there's a world of difference between helping people to see and telling them they're blind. Very different. Takes time and conversation to grow. Lean grows people. A3 grows people. It's a talent management system at its best. It has nothing to do with processes. If you've got talented people with the right measurement systems, with the right incentive, everything improves, including your processes. Okay. We tried to create a blame-free culture, but I do like this quote, and we've seen a lot of Lego slides this week, so Lego is obviously in fashion. This is a quote from the CEO. We do blame for 2 things, as it said. We blame is not for failing, but it is for failing to help out when asked. No, I'm sticking in my silos, I got my target. Helping out is normal. The other thing is failing to ask for help when you know you're in trouble because you want to do it independently. Working in organizations is a team game. And I know in that, from the conversation of the opening speech, I'll refer right back to that, I am an introvert too. There are lots of us, okay? I like the science to do my talking for me. I like engaging in one-to-one rather than big events like this. But everybody needs collaboration. No man is an island. But even the introverts need to ask for help when they need it. So what does this engaging look like? I'm going to take you gently through this now so we can characterize what engaging in a mass production organization looks like towards an agile or a lean organization. Basically, engaging here says, does the job design allow you to even talk to your customer? Or are you designed out? The system has actually designed you out of talking to your customer. Gone is the first principle of lean. Very often, it's the product manager that does that, and we hope he gets it right. But in lean organizations, actually we get more people. So we get different perspectives on that, a deeper understanding, so it's not lost in translation, and there's more involvement. To what extent can staff modify the solutions in response to customer needs? Now, in development, I think you can do a lot more of that, but certainly in other organizations and other industries, you can't. The products and services are fixed. This next one gives you an idea. Is everything in your department forbidden? It's locked down. You can't do anything unless you ask permission. All right? Or is everything permitted? You can do all of these things. I trust you. You're trained to the right level, but don't touch the SOX compliance stuff over here because we'll be in legal trouble. But for the rest of the stuff, you can see that's a completely different mentality of management. You'd feel differently in that organization. So what does learning mean? Well, now I've got this information about the customers. Do employees routinely share it within their team, other functions, and even with the executive teams? How often do you see the executive teams? I spoke to one organization only last week, and I found out that some people in that organization hadn't seen the chief exec in their building for 3 years. Because he was going to the places, yet he was a great advocate of lean, yet he didn't go and see the people where lean happens. So we changed that. But that came as a complaint from the staff. What is the management focus? Employee utilization, busy, bang, bang, trying to get more time and utilization out. Work intensification, and worse still, task intensification. Or is it creativity? Building creativity in your staff. Focusing your staff on the customer outcomes. Does it do what it says on the tin? Problem solving, learning, sharing knowledge and collaboration. Actively encouraging collaboration. Very often in the command and control environment, people say, you are working for me, don't go and talk to the other guys. All right, we've got to meet our goals, don't waste your time elsewhere. But there's no time wasted in collaboration. So leading. What type of leading are we talking about? I believe leadership, and I think we've heard it from a number of people, leadership is an activity, not a position. And lean and agile requires people to lead at every level. But to lead at every level, people need to know it's fairly risk-free. This is the important thing. We reserve the right to be wrong when there's evidence. And that is a strength, not a weakness. But unless you got the prediction right, and you want to alter it, you can't, because you're seen as you're not in control in a mass production environment. And that's the last thing you want to do in a mass production environment, is show that you don't have control. When in fact, the mass production has less control than a lean environment, as we will demonstrate. So improving. Can your staff improve the end-to-end process?
Can you improve the products and services? Or do you just sit there, do your busy, busy, bang, bang, and hope everybody else is doing the same busy, busy, bang, bang, and it all joins up somewhere? But nobody's doing the integration. And then we put supervisors in to get a bigger bang for the buck. So we get busy, busy, bang, 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 bang. All right? And then we turn around and say we have no time for improvement. No, because we've gone for the utilization. We've taken people out as soon as we can because utilization of staff, maximizing the output of the staff instead of maximizing value to the customer is its philosophy. I'd rather have people sitting around doing other things as long as we're maximizing value for the customer, because that's what pays the bills at the end of the day. So I'm going to talk about a climate. I was comparing engaging, learning, leading, and improving. I was comparing what a mass production and a lean environment looks like. We all know that. We can feel that. So I'm asking you to think about this thing called a work climate. It's not a culture. A work climate sits at the surface layer of an organization. And these are sorts of things. Great work only happens when the management is trustworthy. And having a trust strategy is critical to your success. If the management are lying, changing their mind all the time, not standing up for things, particularly driving knowledge work to excellence, if they're not standing up for that, you will come back. Your commitment will no longer be willing. You'll hold back. Especially if there's going to be errors. You're going to hold back. You don't want the attention. So the climate now has gone cold. And sometimes, actually, it's not a cool environment. It's a red-hot environment, because if I get out of sync with my management, it becomes red-hot, and you want to avoid that. So this can be a red-hot environment. So that reduces your performance. Or it could be a pretty cool environment. It's pretty relaxed. We're taking time for reflection. We're actually producing better quality work. We're getting deeper insights. All of these. In knowledge work, it's about insight, creating better things. And the environment is that thing that forces us to behave in a particular way. If you've got that toxic environment, you won't behave in the right way. But a cool environment where it's safe, you will succeed. So this is a busy slide. These are the dimensions that we measure for engaging, learning, leading, and improving. It is a scientific study. It's done online. The whole company gets involved. All right, so we are measuring how the organization feels to the people, the managers, and the leaders. Is this a good climate? Now, a climate, the good thing about climate is it's easy to change. The bad thing about a climate is that it's easy to change. So let me give you an example. You had a previous boss. Joe was really great. He gave you all the time. Output was good. It was great coming to work. There was no challenge in getting out of bed. You worked overtime. You were putting more in. Then there's a new boss. He's saying, right, I just want so many more lines of code, or these volumetric numbers, driving the efficiency, cost at all cost. Suddenly, the environment doesn't feel the same. The work climate has changed as quickly as that. That's how quick it changes. The new boss comes in and he can change it. But I'm going to make a distinction here between work climate and the culture. Has the culture of the organization changed? No. It's just been pushed back a little bit while this new boss is there. The culture that you've learned is still there. If that bad manager stays in place for any length of time, that work climate will slowly become the culture. Okay? So every culture starts off as a work climate until it becomes codified, all the symbols, all the recognition. So what our challenge is here is, whatever the culture, work climate can change quite quickly with the right management approach. But we've got to have lots of trust to do that if there's been a bad climate previously. But establishing the trust is one thing, getting the new working practices on this basis of this trust. The climate has changed. This is good. But the old bad culture is still there and can swamp back. So the job of you guys and your managers is to hold on to the new work climate. Once you've got it, don't let it go. You hang on to it for dear life. And that takes courage. It takes courage, truth, honesty, and tenacity. And some of the work that I do with the leaders in organization, and I mean people at a lower level of the organization, the leaders in the everyday work, we teach them how to have that courage, to look at the stories the company says about itself, to highlight the inauthenticities. And as a group, you can do that. You become the conscience of the organization until it becomes the consciousness of the business. Now, this all sounds like touchy-feely, soft stuff. But this is your workplace. Which one would you rather work in? I know which one I would rather work in. And it is your choice. If you are sitting there waiting for the big boss to come along and say, we want to change the work climate, it is not going to happen. You can make a choice to start. Get the right manager in the right place and start. You can have your own microclimate in one area. Just need to start. And I'm going to show you some case studies in a moment where people did just that. But let me get the technical stuff out of the way. If you're interested in the technical stuff on how to measure climate, this is it. If you've just accepted the concept of climate, you can switch to screensaver for the next 2 minutes. Okay, so these are the questions. I'm going to look at engaging and learning first, then leading and improving. So let me just say, in the center here, this is neutral. We're not neither one nor the other. But going better mass production or better lean is a completely different route map, as I will demonstrate. This is one company. These are 2 development teams in 2 different countries doing exactly the same work. They're doing Agile, they're doing Scrum, they're doing Canva, they're doing all of it. And they've had somebody checking on a check sheet, are they doing it? So comparatively, they're using the same methods. But one team is massively outperforming the other. It is much more innovative, less waste, and a great place to work. In fact, everybody wants to go there. And the other one, they want to get away from. So let's have a look what the climate survey said. In the one location, it was mass production. Let me just explain this. This is a weak thing. It's neither mass production, it's a bit woolly, there's no control. Standard here is a standard mass production environment, which you could have an excellent one as well. Okay? So a good standard one, a good base mass production will be red all the way down here. Okay? But we're not. It's fragmented. So it's not even a good mass production. It's not even a good mass production. So let me explain. They have autonomy within their work. It's not too bad. They do some customer-facing activity, of course. Intelligence gathering, very little intelligence gathering about the customer's world. Okay? Do they share intelligence within the team? Yes, they do, and they do it really well. They do it really well within their silo. Okay, organizational understanding, next to nothing. So how could they share if they don't know where the other teams are? We don't interact anyway. So their knowledge about the organization is very lacking. Remember, seeing the big picture of your organization is vitally important. Do you know how it all works? Sharing intelligence within the function, excellent. And with local functions, great. Sharing intelligence with senior management, we never see them. Now, these are not my words. These are the live words of people just like you. Just like you. So, Let's look at the other team on engaging and learning. Remember, they're doing exactly the same work, but one's outperforming. Levels of autonomy, still not great. Customer-facing activity was good, but in a lean way. They were looking for new services and products, where they were looking for, what can I sell you next off my shelf? That was a push. Here is a pull. Intelligence gathering from the customer environment. What's going on? Very little here. Sharing that information with the team. Their organizational understanding, huge. Which means if I got a problem, I know where to go. I don't need permission. I can just go and talk. Pick up the phone, have a quick meeting with them, whatever it is. Okay? Sharing within the function, sharing with other functions, and sharing with senior managers. It was routine that the managers went to the workplace and said, hey guys, what's going on? What do you need my help with? So they were removing obstacles. Here, this wasn't even a good command and control organization. This is what I call a command and hope organization. Leading and improving. Again, performance management was weak. They weren't even doing good mass production. So there was lots of loose things. The leadership approach was almost non-existent. Responsive to customer issues was extremely high. Absolutely. All right. But implementing ideas to better serve customers was low. This is strange. Not until you realize that what they're responding to is the customer complaint. And then once that's out of the way, it's back to the busy, busy, bang, bang stuff. Improving. They weren't improving their service, their workplace, other functions, or end-to-end. Here, look at this. End-to-end process, employee functions. That's two teams working for the same organization, both using Agile, Scrum, and Kanban. And they ticked all the boxes. So just bear that in mind. I now want to move to the other side of the fence. We've talked about the DevOps problem, which I think is a totally made-up thing, by the way. It's made up by people who are trying to sell automation technology. So why better, make up a problem and then give them a tool to do it with? Yes, there's a problem between development and ops. But as we will see, there's a load of problems within every part of development, and there's every part within the ops. They're just as fragmented. So why pick on this little lonely one? Okay? It's the same thinking end to end. And the reason is, I honestly believe, it's people selling technologies. Because developers are frustrated with what's happening in the operate space. So let's give them a tool so they don't have to talk to people. Okay. So let's go through that. You know the problems in development. I'm not going to stand here and tell you what you already know. I'm going to take you over the other side of the fence. We're going to their Gemba. And their problem here was quite simply, it was a global company, they needed to build servers, and this was initiated by one guy in Philadelphia saying, I want to do an A3 on this because it's not working. And out of that came this exercise. And they did change the way that servers were procured, built, managed, and everything else. But to do that, they had to show the management what was going on. But they didn't know what was going on. They just knew it was frustrating and it was broken. How do we make sense of this? It's highly complex. So I'm transporting you now over to the other side of the wall. This stuff will be in the slide set. Needless to say, it's a cross-functional team from right across the business. We were getting them in the room to try and figure out what the value stream was. To do that, we gave them a system, and I've used the system for a great number of years, at least 10 years. It's a variation on value stream mapping, but I think this gives us a lot more information because in IT-related stuff, we have the technology stuff that we are dealing with. We have the technology we are managing, and we have the technology we're managing the technology with. So it's all technology. Okay, the life cycle process, phases, high-level process, the areas responsible for that process, KPIs by phase, what data is required to take these activities, what tools or policy is required, and are there any dependencies. So just think about that for now. Don't study it too hard. That's just the key to what you're going to see. So this is a team. These are technicians, some enterprise architects, some enterprise management people, all of them, okay? Even some guys from procurement for the parts, from networks, build the operating system, load the application, clear the space in the data center, all of that. So they're trying to figure out how all of this fits together, because they're all in different departments and the work is going everywhere. So you can see then they're starting to figure this out. And this work from this point on is 3 days' work. 3 days' work. All right? These 12 people or more were in this room for 12 days. Because I said to them, we're not coming out of here till we figured this out. And after 2 days, they said, we're not staying in here anymore. No, I was kidding. The interesting thing was, when we started talking about the whole value stream and start building this, a number of people said, listen, my boss told me to come in here and just talk about my bit and get the hell out. And we said, I'm sorry, you've got to learn the whole thing. We need to find out where you fit in this. And you need to know where you fit in this, because we currently don't know. And after the first day, he was then engaged. But it's interesting, his manager said, look, you just tell them what they want and come back, I got work for you. But he rang up his manager and said, look, this is far too important. So these are the guys trying to figure this out. The usual pain point mapping. I am not in favor of pain point mapping for various reasons, too complicated to go into, but they like pain point mapping, so I said, okay, go ahead. They learned afterwards the pain points were symptoms, all symptoms, not causes. So we can now see the map coming up. The major phases, this is how simple, low tech, okay? This was all done with Microsoft bound paper. It's a program, it's an app you can load. So these were the different phases. You can put, these are the general activities. These were the different departments, and you can see different departments were doing the same activity, so it's going in different ways. And sometimes you go that way, sometimes it goes that way, depending on who picked it up. All right? Then they need to start these shapes here, right across here, were the measures that they started developing, because they didn't have measures by phases. Because what they were measuring was just quantity. Was in, get it out, in, get it out. But they were all doing that independently, so there was no sequencing of the right server build. Okay? And then this is the information that is required to do the work, and these are the tools, these are lots of tools that people used to do the work, and I'll deep dive into that. The thing I want to point out, which was the revelation, that is where they took the order to build something. The order was coming from development guys saying, I need a system to do a proof of concept. A whole bunch of things. They were testing things to destruction as well. All right. Also, we get orders because we needed to increase capability. So there was all sorts of servers for all sorts of reasons going through this, and they had all of procurement, configuration, and all of those sorts of things. But that's where the build starts. Much to the surprise of everybody, what they looked at was most of the problems that they were working on down here and overcome, and I'll show you how they'd overcome lots of these problems, was because they didn't have basic information here, because this was completely empty. There was a pre-production phase that nobody had thought about. It was given to the techies to figure it out. Okay? There wasn't even a technology roadmap. Which ones are we going to select? They were free to select them. They were free to select different monitoring tools. These are all the monitoring tools. And they were, we ran out. The guy was going crazy. Give me more stickies, give me more stickies. All right? But it is funny, yes, but when you realize these guys were working shifts, handing over stuff, we didn't have an architecture that made sense. We didn't know where it all was. And we were all using different methods to control it. So different departments were crossing over with other people. The alerts from the enterprise management tools. We had so many alerts, which were old alerts. We'd forgotten what they were for. But we didn't have time to go and turn them off. So they'd come in, and we would check them. It's a false alarm. But we would check it just in case. And they'd learn to do it just in case, because that one that they'll say, that's a false alarm, you'll guarantee that's the one that brings the systems down. And they'll say, there was an alert, why didn't you pick that? Well, 1 in 10 million, I'm exaggerating, it was 20, no. It's really difficult, all right? So we needed to rationalize, the guys, how could you do that? How it has helped with security, a whole host of stuff. The security policies were very difficult, as you can imagine. So this is the world of the developers, even down to decommissioning and disposal. Just for interest, they were coming up with measures. Some of these were quantities as well, just to make sure that production was going through the system. These were what I call the golden 5. Whatever measure you have, if it has these 5 things, you're probably on the right track. One is, it has to be a measure of how it's creating value for the customer. It also has to reduce the cost of the process and the end-to-end time. Velocity is the most important thing. You need to reduce the variation in delivery. You need to reduce the work in progress. It's work in progress and getting rid of it that gives you adaptability. But the one that was the most important is, whatever change you make, it has to make the employees happier. If it doesn't make the employees happier, then the change you put in place is still not good enough. You have to make the employee's life better, not just hit the target. And this is what these guys were doing. Then they deep dive into different builds. Okay, so not only was it fragmented, not only people were using different tools, the work that was going through was being reworked and reworked and reworked and sent back. All right? But these guys had orders to get out. And people were chasing them. But as we can see when we formalize that picture now, remember that, we're now formalizing it. There was a pre-production process. And then the production phases. This is where most of the guys were. Doing all the busy, busy, bang, bang. This is heroic work. So let's just drill down. The pre-production. These in yellow mean that we've got something, but it's not fit for purpose. Red means that activity is completely missing. But when we look in the build, in the actual production part, it was pretty good, but it could be a lot better. It wasn't fit for purpose, but we could raise that up. Now, the next slide is very busy, but you can't read the detail, but you can see the colors, and that's what I want to draw your attention. So putting the production and the pre-production together, what do we see? This represents all those tools, all those different ways of working. And yes, even they had gaps. Okay, so this is a very detailed level. These are all the departments that were doing the same thing, but in multiple different ways. But this is where they started the build. These red areas were completely absent because they hadn't walked the value stream. People were giving these guys work, and without the information about the standards that we're going to use, the selection of the certain types of products, all of these, okay, they were improvising like hell. And they did a good job. But they had to be heroes. Heroic leadership in a lean organization is a failure, not a triumph. We needed to go further. They needed to be able to give this information to the executive team. You imagine you are going to tell the big boss, these were guys, 3 days they got that information. And there were lots of arguments, I can tell you. But they came up with this and they said, this is what we want it to look like. We've got a redesign for this, and this is the measurement system. But they needed to present this data to the management team. And they knew it was going to be difficult. So it's a bit like going to a mother and telling her, your baby is ugly. That's what we trained them for, to give this information. This is the guy. But not only the map that you just saw, we were also looking at other behaviors. This is a measure here. All these things like we're honest, our staff are trained, we've got good process improvement, a whole range of things. And we said, well, how well do we say we do it? How well do we say to ourselves, our management, say to us how we do it from 1 to 10, 10 being good. So here it is, the blue line. That's how we say, it could be better, this is really good. And then we say, what's it really like? What it really, really like? By this time, there's a safe environment to talk out. So then we have the reality. There is the reality. And between the two, we have the gap. We have the gap between the perception and the reality. And then we ask a very important question. Okay, so what happens? What cost do we pay to the customer, to the business, to ourselves? What cost gets paid by us to pretend one way and the reality is another one? And it was out of integrity, loss of willingness, all the stuff, all the climate stuff, because of what we were saying was not like what we were doing, and everybody knew. Everybody knew, but we weren't going to talk about it, were we? Because it's not safe. So we pretend. So we continue to pay the cost. So I asked a very important question. There's the pretense. This is getting to a really important point. There's the pretense. There's the reality. There's the list of cost to you personally and to a black cat. Black cat? The black cat came into this because when we were doing the cost, the one guy says, the black cat gets it. We said, what do you mean? Well, every night I go home and I kick the black cat. So for the sake of the black cat, we had to change something because it was sick of being kicked. So all of that cost, loss of integrity, loss of innovation, boring job, loss of contribution, only did stuff when I was asked, the sense of futility. And then I said, one question. If you're paying all that cost, there must be a benefit. What is the benefit? And they thought about this for a while, and they said, the benefit is this: if we take on responsibility and we get it wrong, we do not get blamed. And that's what we mean by creating a blame-free environment. We have to do that. So this is serious science about how work gets processed and how we design work and who should be doing that. They changed this dramatically. This is before. This is those guys at that operation, disengaging, wasn't even a great mass production. They could have said, we'll go for an improvement objective. And they said, no, 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 this has got to really change. We're going to have a transformation objective. And 18 months later, that's what you saw. You don't need to go into the detail. Leading, before, mass production, decided a complete opposite to go. That's the summary. So, in organizations, we've got to learn. If we want to improve this, that's improvement, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want adaptability, willing contribution, and innovation, we have to redesign our thinking. And we need to go this way. And lean and agile, even Kanban, corrected myself, Kanban, as practiced by some people that I've recently associated with, has those elements, treating people best. Willing contribution comes from open, honest conversations. It's time to end the pretense. We've got work to do. Thank you.